guys. Happy Friday. Let me see. There I am. Okay. Um, so thank you for joining. If you guys are just getting here, thank you for coming into the chat. Please hit the like button as you come in. You guys, so I tried to do Angie Stone's memorial service. However, we had a little hiccup. We had a power outage in our area, so then I had to do mobile and everything. Hey, D-Dot, welcome back to the chat. I'm sorry, you guys, that we got the interruption for the Angie Stone memorial service. Okay, wait, hold on. Let me take myself off of there. Wait a minute, so I can see you guys. I apologize. For the disruption, but the power went out. So then I jumped on my cell phone. My daughter was able to get it up on the cell phone. I was just sitting up here pissed. I'm like, and my daughter was like, Mom, you always taught me there's always a workaround. So let me help you. So she got it back up and running. So thank you guys. And shout out to my co-host Lulu for holding everything together. Thank you, Lulu. And thank you, D-Dot, for being in the chat. Thank you. Thank you guys for the support. I appreciate it. But y'all, okay, so Angie Stone, R.I.P., rest in peace. You guys, her daughter, I know you guys saw her daughter. It was sad. Of course, I cried, everything. The music was beautiful. Went to church. But now there's Diddy. So Diddy was in court today. So we're going to get caught up because I didn't get everything. There were some live tweets that was happening, but again, I wasn't on. So we're going to go back and look at some of the stuff that they're talking about. So let's start with this right here.
Fox. I'm your host, Christina Evans. As promised before our 2-minute break, we do want to continue on with some of today's top stories as well. I want to show you this live look that we have there in New York City. We were just listening into that press conference that happened in Newark, New Jersey, now transitioning over to more crime stories related in New York. This is focusing, though, on the celebrity trial. Sean Diddy Combs, he's facing new allegations of forced labor. I want to pull up this tweet as well that we have from our friend to the show, Megan Cuniff. This is about the new Diddy indictment, saying that there are no new victims or charges, and he still doesn't have any co-defendants, but prosecutors say that the superseding indictment against Sean Diddy Combs includes new allegations related to forced labor. So what we do know is that the U.S. Attorney's Office there of the Southern District on Thursday submitted that new court filing that leveled one new allegation against Combs to add to his racketeering and sex crime charges that he's already facing and has pleaded not guilty to. Within this second superseding indictment, it updates the amended indictment back from January that added 3 unnamed women who were allegedly victims of his so-called sex trafficking enterprise. They say that Combs subjected.
So that's some new information. She said 3 updated women. So I guess 3 new Jane Does, because we knew about Cassie, and then 2 more women, and I believe there's some John Does.
Those employees to forced labor under inhumane circumstances. To help us just to break this down and understand a bit more about what's happening there with this case, I want to bring in, again, legal affairs journalist Megan Cuniff. Megan, thanks so much for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. Let's talk about it. We've been following this case, of course, since those raids happened last year, leading up to his trial date that's set to start on May 5th. Let's talk about the new allegations.
Yes, I mean, this really looks.
You guys, before Megan Cuniff gets started, you guys know Megan Cuniff she's like a legal journalist. She was there reporting on the Tory Lanez, Megan Thee Stallion case. Also, she just recently made some new headlines when she made the bet against 50 Cent, where she bet him, like, I think it was $500,000. She was saying that ASAP Rocky would probably face charges. I mean, he was facing charges, but would be convicted. And so she lost. So there was this whole back and forth about whether or not, a tweet that whether or not she would be whether or not it was enforceable, because her tweet with 50 Cent was a tweet. So is that something that you could uphold in court? So that's the Megan Cuniff, and a lot of times she will give live updates and tweets from court, just so you guys know who she is.
looks like the May trial date is on. I think a lot of people early on were expecting him to get co-defendants, perhaps more charges, but I think people were really focused on whether there would be more people indicted here and he would have co-conspirators who could possibly testify against him in trial. That hasn't happened, and it looks like it's not going to happen. And it looks like the May trial date is a go. So this is prosecutors getting totally ready for that. And we've already seen a change in defense counsel. He lost one of his defense attorneys, not his main counsel, but one of the defense attorney's concerns, people have said, is that he thought that they needed more time to prepare for trial. But his existing counsel apparently doesn't think so. So they're ready to go. There is actually a motion to dismiss that's pending right now for the third charge involving transportation for means of prostitution. And it actually relates to Diddy's use of escorts. And the dismissal motion is saying that this is an unprecedented use.
I don't think they're gonna dismiss that charge. Some people were thinking that the dismissal means the dismissal of the case. No, it's just all of each charge you can counter and ask for it to be dismissed. And D-Dot, did we ever find out whether or not 50 Cent is pursuing Megan Kuniff for that $500,000? I haven't heard any updates on that. Is she going to have to pay?
Of that, and that the law actually is rooted in racism and has roots in slavery, and they're making the point that Diddy is being prosecuted really in an unprecedented fashion under this. So that's currently being litigated. The U.S. Attorney's Office is opposing that, and there's a reply motion coming in soon from Diddy's attorneys. I'm not sure there's a good chance that the charge will actually be dismissed, and it's important to keep in mind that if it is, there are still two other charges to contend with, the racketeering for sure. So there's a lot that remains to be seen, but it does look like we are set for trial in May.
And that's going to be a huge thing that so many people are focused on. Let's talk about that trial just a little bit more. Set for May 5th. We know that Diddy is a celebrity. I mean, he's one of the biggest faces in pop culture and entertainment overall. It's going to be a jury selection process. And we've talked about this several different times with other cases, even the last one that we talked about with A$AP Rocky. What are your thoughts on how that process is going to get underway? How difficult is it going to be for that jury selection process when there is a person there in the room of such high profile?
I think there's been so much attention on this case, and then not only this case, but all the lawsuits against Diddy over the past few months, that it could be difficult to find a group of people that really makes the defense happy. And of course, the prosecutors.
I think they're really going to be looking for probably not. I almost want to say non-Black, but I don't even know. I feel like they're going to be looking for older. Going to be looking for like older jurors and people who don't know much about hip hop or something like that, because they really are going to want people, I'm assuming, that are not going to be biased or who don't know a lot about this. Although I don't think anybody didn't hear about this. I mean, that's crazy. You will probably have to be in another country and don't care about Diddy to not know about this. And yeah, D-Dot, I know 50 is petty. He's going to want his money just for the mere fact that she had the nerve.
They're going to be emphasizing that it's not that people can't just have never heard of the case before. And I think it's unlikely that they could find people who have never heard of Diddy or never heard of the case, all 12 people or 15 people, including alternates. But the important thing is, can they find people who have heard about this but believe that they can be fair? And there's going to be all sorts of different things that both sides are looking for. But I think this case for sure will be a big test of the power of celebrity and what that could mean for a jury pool, for sure.
And it is he's one of the highest profile people, as we were just talking about. I mean, it's been interesting to see the response online. I just remember when it first came out that he was being indicted, when the house was raided, even Cassie's bombshell allegations that came out. It's been a long lead up to this point. So it'll be interesting to see how things start to play out. And you also mentioned his defense counsel switching up. It's interesting to see this as we're getting in the last few months heading into trial. I want to put up this that you also put there on.
Hey, y'all, let's welcome Queen Sugar to the chat. She is with King Co TV, Push the Culture. You guys go check them out. great. I mean, a lot of fun, and the channel is really growing, you guys. So go check them out and give them a follow. Thank you for joining, Queen. Please hit that like button, girl.
On that statement officially from his lawyer saying that he denies. Oh, this is a different statement. I'm looking for the one where he's talking about him leaving the legal team as well. But in the meantime, I wanted to ask you about that. We were talking about the changes to his defense. The New York City attorney, Tony Rico, is officially out as his lawyer. You said it was because he didn't feel he had enough time to prepare. Can you sort of go into a little bit more about that? And how common is it at this point, late in the game, to change up some of your defense?
There's been reports about various reasons that he withdrew. One being he did think that they needed more time to prepare, but I think there's also a lot of different views on case strategy and that thing. And really, I think it's important to remember that these are lawyers who are used to being the star of the show, including Mark Agnefilia, whose statement we just saw. So there could be some kind of behind the scenes, ego clashing going on with that. So, but I think it's important to know that the main counsel who's been with them this entire time is still on the case and moving forward. So.
Do we know what his main strategy is heading into these last few months? Is there anything else that they're able to, do you think, pull out of the bag there in the courtroom that might help this case? Because there's a lot of evidence as so far on the government side, as they're saying, to pin him to these charges.
Yeah, I think what we're really looking at here is a defense that's based on this being consensual. At least that's what we've heard with the first victim, who we know to be Cassie. The prosecutors are under an order to identify the other two victims under an attorney eyes only disclosure this week. So I think
they're still fighting to keep the anonymity of the other Jane Doe's, because you guys know what happened with the whole thing with Jay-Z. Apparently Jay-Z was able to circumvent and find out who that person was, but now they're trying to say it's for attorney's eyes only, and so they want a lot of things not to be public now.
The consensual defense is going to be one that we're going to see pushed here, but it's hard to say without seeing really more of the evidence. In federal court, we haven't had a preliminary hearing or anything like that kind of previews what they have. So it kind of remains to be seen, but it seems like his attorneys are full speed ahead getting ready here.
And it is going to be something that we're going to continue to watch here on Live Now from Fox. I do want to step away from this discussion just for a second. We also heard your name. It was mentioned as well in Tory Lanez new song. I think we have a post as well that we can kind of put up about it. But Megan, you've done a fantastic job over the years covering some of these high-profile cases. And now, as you can see there on your screen, he mentioned you, and not such a nice way, in his new song, My Shayla. I got to ask you, though, what was your response to seeing this, and how have you been sort of responding to the newfound fame of being mentioned in a rap song?
So, well, here we go. People have been asking me over the years, wait until you get mentioned in a rap song, and now people are encouraging me, oh, you need to come back with your own rap song diss. I don't think I have the skills to do that, but it's fun to see the internet kind of play out and take it away. They can kind of do their own thing with it, and I can kind of just sit back and watch. So that's kind of the fun of it.
Well, I think you're taking it very well. Again, legal affairs journalist Megan Cuniff here to help us break down some of these headlines as it pertains to the Sean Diddy Combs case. Of course, it's going to be more things to come out in the next days and weeks leading up to the trial. Megan, I hope you'll come back on with us and help us to understand those changes as they lead up.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, so D-Dot was saying, D-Dot says, Jay-Z sent goons to the autistic woman's house and her parents. And so that lady, that Jane Doe, the one who claims that, Diddy and Jay-Z violated her when she was 13, she's like going back and forth in terms of, did this happen? I mean, she's retracted it. Of course, the case has been dismissed, but now she said that allegedly, because now we got Jay-Z's side with the PI saying one thing, and then we got Tony Busby saying another thing. And so it's just all over the place, like what really happened. But it's even though I don't believe that Jay-Z, I just don't personally, not saying that he's not capable, but I didn't believe that particular case. But the problem that I have with it is the fact that if she had counsel, even if the case was dismissed, at what point did you reach out to her? Like, you are subject to certain things in a lawsuit that you're not supposed to do. So that kind of makes it look bad for Jay-Z. I don't know what kind of Chris says, yep, heard that, D dot, all of this turning into a reality show. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to play out for Jay-Z, because you know that, well, now see, here's the thing, the PIs are saying that they weren't hired by Jay-Z to do it, because then that kind of absolves him with this information coming out. But who would just go in and be trying to interview this woman other than Jay-Z's legal team? So that's how they're trying to circumvent it and get around it. But there could be some penalties and sanctions with all of that, because you cannot, if the person, first of all, if their identity is supposed to be protected, that's the whole thing that Diddy was getting in, why they didn't want to let Diddy out, because they believed that there was going to be witness tampering. So this is what we're having here. So, I mean, this is just a mess, you know. That particular case, it was dismissed with prejudice, so she cannot bring it up again or accuse him. But there could be new charges that Jay-Z's team is facing, if not at least the attorneys, because it seems like they cross some lines here. I don't know every little thing, because I've just been hearing bits and pieces back and forth, but it is totally a mess. Hey, Michael Miller, welcome to the chat. Y'all know when you come in, please hit that like button. D-Dot says Tony Buzznuts does not protect his victims. No, he does not. I mean, first of all, why are you filing lawsuits in places, jurisdictions where you can't practice? And even if you do, I mean, he knows better. He knows that if you do that you have to go get that, what they call it, the pro hockey DC. I don't know, because it's been a minute since I've been into law stuff, but he knows that you're supposed to follow procedures. Those are the technicalities that get cases dismissed and get thrown out. So he really screwed up for all of his clients. All of those cases now, I mean, they're up for grabs. He could, and I don't know why he didn't use co-counsel. If he had counsel in New York working with him, why didn't he rely on them? Why didn't they tell him the procedures of their local laws, right? It's just so many things that is wrong with Tony Busby. But I really feel like Tony Busby really just thought he was going to do a shakedown, throw this out there. Oh, we need to have a quick mediation, give us this money, and then put it behind us. So, but it didn't work that way. Jay-Z was like, oh, hell no. Chris says, didn't he post on his page proof he can practice? Yes. Well, he can practice in New York, but there are different jurisdictions and different courts in which you can practice. Being able to practice in the state of New York. See, and that's the thing about attorneys. They're very deceptive. You can say two things, but really only be honest about one. You know what they say? Did you do it? Yes, but are you guilty? No. So just because he could practice in the state does not mean he has the ability to practice under that local jurisdiction, like federal court, superior. I mean, there's so many different ones. Like, even when you're a paralegal, a legal assistant, you will not necessarily know all of the rules of court in all the various jurisdictions. That's why you always have to research and, understand that you are representing your client effectively. So say, for example, if you're an attorney in California and you're practicing in New York, you need to know New York State. Are you licensed to practice there? Is it the right jurisdiction? Is it federal, appellate? It's just so many intricacies, so even when people get up here and try to explain the law, laws change all the time. You have local laws. It's a lot. That's why the attorneys make the big bucks. Chris says, good info. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. And you guys, don't forget to go follow Chris Nicole. She has a YouTube channel as well. But y'all, so Diddy went to court today. And so we're going to go back. Well, Chris, you just joined in. But I was doing the Angie Stone funeral. And then I had a power outage. So it was a mess. So I didn't get to go and do the live coverage where the legal analysts are tweeting from inside the court. So let's go back and let me share this page. And we're going to go back and look at some stuff that we didn't get to see, or at least I didn't get to see. For those of you that really care, let me see. And I always use Inner City Press. And as you guys just saw, there's Megan Coonan. She's a good person, but we're going to kind of start from the beginning for those of you that really want to know all of the deets. Let me see. I just want to make sure you guys can see it. I'm sharing my screen. Yeah, girl, you're welcome. Chris says, yeah, I don't like funerals either. I was sitting up here crying in the background. It was beautiful though. I mean, they didn't show the body or anything. They did show the casket, but it was like church. It was going to church. But okay, you guys, so this is Inner City Press. Inner City Press is what I usually rely on to get like the most up-to-date information of what's going on behind the scenes. So this is from an hour ago. He says proceedings still haven't started. Combs's lawyers are chatting with Assistant U.S. Attorney Maureen Comey. And I think that's opposing side. Yeah. So he says Combs's lawyers are chatting. So this right here again shows that there is some familiarity between attorneys. Like they don't hate each other. Like people think attorneys are all at odds. Now, in the situation with Busby and Jay-Z's attorney, they seem to be going at it. Right. That was a mess. But usually, I mean, you want to beat the attorney, the other opposing counsel, but they don't really hate each other. This is a job for them. So then Inner City Press says Sean Combs is led in by U.S. Marshals in a tan uniform. I thought they all wore orange, but that shows how much I know. In a tan uniform of MDC jail. His hair is silver gray. Well, y'all know it's not funny, but once you're incarcerated, you can't be getting that wig shift. I got a lot of goddamn nerves to talk, okay? But you can't be getting your hair dyed, and you can't be getting your brows done and nails and all of that. So Diddy is coming in there el natural, right? Diddy is natural, okay? So then Inner City Press says, all rise, Judge Aaron Subramanian. Good afternoon, Mr. Combs. Diddy says, Combs, good afternoon. Judge, have you seen the superseding indictment? Combs responds, yes. The judge says, do you want me to read it out? Combs says, I'm fine. He don't want to hear that ish. I already know. Judge says, you waived the public reading? Combs says, I do. Combs is like, get to the meat of this, okay? Y'all, it ain't shit I could do. I don't even need to hear it, no, And don't come back later, Diddy, and try to use this and say, well, I wasn't aware. The judge specifically asked you if you wanted a public reading, and you said no. So Inner City Press says, so of course there's judge, and so I'm just going to read the person who's speaking. Judge, I propose we administer jury questionnaires on April 28th and 29th, maybe the 30th. We'll come back for voir dire on May 5th with an eye of starting trial May 12th, as defense suggested. Attorney for the U.S., Steiner, and U.S. Attorney says that's helpful. Our focus is witness availability. Y'all, I'm not even going to try to lie and say voir dire, what that is. I don't know. I don't know all of these French terms. I have to go look them up. But anyway. So the Inner City, so Combs's lawyer, Mark Agnifilio, says, we'd like a sequestered voir dire. Okay, so let me go look up a voir dire because it looked like it's gonna keep coming up because I don't know what that one is. Voir dire definition. And a voir dire is a preliminary examination of a witness or juror by a judge or counsel. Voir dire interrogation of the board members did not bode well. Okay, so it's a preliminary examination of a witness or juror by a judge or counsel. So my assumption would be that would be part of the discovery that they usually do in the law office or something, but I guess not. Again, a different court, so things are different than what I was used to. So So Mark Agnifilio said, we'd like to a sequestered voir dire. So the sequestered means, I guess, like private interviews. And so maybe they don't want that information to be public or privy to, just open. The judge says, we'll do that. Next is defense discovery. You'd like to do something like the Eisenberg case. Don't know what the Eisenberg case is either. A criminal crypto case, which Inner City Press also covered. Okay, so there's a link to that. We ain't gonna do all that. It ain't that. Well, it's serious, but we ain't doing all that. So now, the judge says, Attorney USA Steiner, on the CNN video, is there an issue with it? Are you going to use it? Mr. Agnifilio says, there's a motion incoming. USA says, we want the Rule 17 subpoena returns to understand what they have. Our view is that the video is direct evidence. Okay, so you guys know yesterday, remember, Diddy was, it came out that Diddy was contesting it, well, his team, and they said that the video, that video of him and Cassie had been edited, that they had done something and that the original had been destroyed, and that video that we saw on television had been modified. Well, evidence, if you can't present it in its full form, you really can't use it. There would have to be the judge would have to overwrite the standing rule, because that could be manipulated. If you generally, when they're talking about the manipulation of the video, it might be, maybe there's 10 minutes of nothing. It's just dead air, right? And then there's action. So sometimes they'll just clip out that part and let you see the action, right? But you still need the original video to prove that that's all you did. If you don't have the original, that's a problem, because then we're going to start talking about, and AI is a new concept for a lot of us, but then we're going to be talking about, oh, it was manipulated. That's not what happened. So that's what they're saying here. So US is saying, our view is that the video is direct evidence. They're saying the video is good. There's nothing wrong with it. CNN came out late yesterday evening saying, Diddy, you full of ish. We didn't modify that tape. It's in its full form. And I don't know if they said if the original was modified. Okay, but anyway, the judge says, we do not have the original security video. So the judge is like, excuse me? He's questioning, what? Because that's a big deal. It needs to be the original. It cannot be a copy. We don't have the original security video. The US says, we have the CNN and a recording of the original footage. That's not the same. I mean, this kind of gets tricky. We have a recording of the original. That still could be a modification, in my opinion. The judge says, will you confer with the defense to agree on which video will be used at trial? You're not trying to mislead one, are you? And the US says, of course not. So it sounds like the judge is still open to this video footage, whether it's in the original form or if it's a copy. So he has not said it's not going forward, which I did a video last night saying that it was going to be used once CNN said it was the original. Combs' lawyer Agnifilio says, a source gave CNN hotel footage. CNN ran that footage through a free editing software. Our expert says that changed the nature of the action, making it up to double time quicker. They took things out of sequence, took out the time steps. Now that, again, this is all going to be subject to the judge, because they're talking about they took it through a free editing software. So see how lawyers try to manipulate stuff? A free editing software. When I make videos, it's editing software. When we create any kind of video and we upload it or we represent it, it's going to be done through a software. So the fact that it's free in editing, they're trying to use all of this extra verbiage to create an issue. Trust me, that's what attorneys do. It says, our expert says that changed the nature of the action. That is, again, they're just making I think they're just trying to make issues with this, right? Making it up to double time quicker. If you hit her, if you hit her like this or you hit her like that, like the outcome is the same. So I don't know what his point is right here, but okay. They took things out of sequence, took out the timestamps. Taking things out of sequence can change how things appear. Now, one of the biggest cases we had with this, and this is before AI was a thing, was Rodney King. You guys remember the footage where Rodney King was beat up and they was like, who you gonna believe, me or your lying eyes? And the police was like saying, that's not what occurred. You didn't see what occurred minutes before. So taking things out of sequence and having a full view of all actions is very important. Removing timestamps is very important because then you cannot really fully understand the authenticity of the data, the metadata. It all aligns. So timestamps, and that's how they validate data, is the metadata, timestamps and everything. So that would be an issue in my opinion. So Combs' lawyer Agnifilio says, we say the video is deceptive. We'll bring that before your honor. So see, they're still trying to get the video thrown out. They don't want that video shown. However, most of us have already seen it. So here's the point. So some people are saying, well, we've already seen it. It's etched in our brains. We know what happened. But here's the thing. Once you are in a jury trial, the judge will give you he'll tell you the jury instructions. So if that tape is not presented, the instructions, like, you can only convict based on the instructions they have. So that's why it's so important for the prosecuting side. They want that video shown to kind of paint him as this person. He's violent and this, but if you don't have it, you don't get to see it again. The jury can't, they're not supposed to make that connection because they don't have that evidence. And then the jury instructions won't allow them to use that to make a determination. So, I mean, those are technicalities as to why one side wants it in and one side doesn't. So I don't know if that explains it well. So the judge says, why do we need two sets of motions? Combs' lawyer Shapiro says, we propose to file March 19th. The judge says, so ordered. So he's given his approval. Combs' lawyer Agnifilio says, we want the identity of the people in the 404B letter. Okay, I'm not familiar with the 404B letter. Could you extend your order about the enterprise letter to that? Okay, so Diddy's lawyer is saying they want the identity of the people in that enterprise letter, which I believe we were supposed to get the enterprise letter a while ago, but we still haven't gotten it. So he's saying, could you extend your order about the enterprise letter to that? Okay. So the prosecuting says the 413 notice was to put the defense on motion. Combs' lawyer Shapiro, this is under seal. Okay, under seal means we won't know. Judge says, and this discussion too, prosecuting says we can refer to the letter. Shapiro says, be more vague about it. I don't know if Shapiro is being sarcastic, but he's saying be more vague about it or don't talk too much about it because it's open forum. I don't know. So Steiner says, which is prosecuting, the notice just tees up for motion practice on if they will be allowed to testify. Okay. So many of these individuals who may never get their day in court are incredibly frightened by having their names this close to the defense. Okay. So people that are in this enterprise letter are probably, well, definitely on the prosecuting side. They're scared. They don't, he's saying they may never get their day in court. So Diddy has probably done things to them. They're frightened and they don't want their names to be disclosed to Diddy. So they want to do this all, privately, through anonymity, right? So judge says, all right, Mr. Agnifilio or Miss Shapiro, do you need the identities for the motion? Diddy's lawyer, I think we do. The attacks don't usually relate to entirely legal issues, okay? We don't want to have our hand behind our back. Some of them we know. Okay, so they want the names, period. The judge says, okay, I'm going to order the government to provide the names on Monday. So I'm assuming this is the upcoming Monday, on an attorney's eyes only basis. Okay, so then this means it'll be redacted. Whatever they file, it'll probably be under seal so that we won't know the names of these people. And Diddy, I guess, should not know as well. Because the concern here is that there's going to be some, retaliation or something, or people are scared. So it says attorney's eyes only, right? Doesn't say client, doesn't say attorney client, attorneys only. Steiner says another option is for us to move on March 19th. They've had to on March 19th. They have had to March 26th. So that's a little bit, I don't know. Doesn't sound. And the judge says no, it's 4 days. Judge says the next pretrial conference is April 25th. So he's telling them the next pretrial conference. If we need more than that, we can do it. Steiner says government intends to produce 3,500 on a daily basis as we get closer to trial. So I'm assuming that's 3,500 pieces of data evidence. Judge says, I saw some nods from the back. Diddy's lawyer says, that's fine. Steiner says they have told us they will not seek a trial delay. Because remember, Diddy wanted this expedited, which I don't know why. There's so much data. There's so much. I mean, there's so many people they're going to have to interview that I just don't see, like, just knowing, like, regular cases, not even criminal cases, how they're going to even be ready for trial to get through all this evidence and all of this. But okay. So Steiner says they have told us they will not seek a trial delay. Agnifilio says there is no application with regard to the trial date. We recently came into possession of a lot of medical records. Oh, okay. So they're saying that they just recently got some new evidence, some new information. We want an expert on prescription medications. And the judge says, okay. So I'm assuming now, again, this is all our interpretation. We don't know everything, what the defense, what they're thinking, but I know that we're talking a lot about, they've been saying a lot about Diddy giving people DRUGSs. So I think the Agnifilio, from a Diddy perspective, they're going to want people to come in and talk about what kind of medications, you know, what was he given? Because remember, they said the lady KK was carrying around, or she had like a little pouch of drugs on her. So they're going to want somebody, an expert witness, to talk about that. And, you know, I don't know their strategy there, but that's what it sounded like to me. And then it says adjourn. So like court over, and then Inner City Press says that they will continue to, you know, keep us abreast. So not much has happened there other than the fact that the Enterprise, it looks like the Enterprise names, they still want to keep those under wrap. They really don't want those people don't want their names disclosed. So let me go back and see what you guys are saying. D-Dot says because they know the outcome. Yeah. D-Dot says T. Satel's got more things on Jay-Z, more bad. Jay-Z, this whole thing with Jay-Z reaching out to that Jane Doe, his attorneys know better. I just don't know why they did that. Like, you got to play fair within the laws, even though once they dismiss the case, that's good. But Jay-Z wanted probably unequivocally, I'm not guilty. But now you're looking more like you could be, because you're strong arming somebody. You're doing things outside of what you're supposed to do legally. D-Dot says too many things being hidden, so the predators get off easy. That's another thing, D-Dot, because some of those people, these are RICO charges, which means there was an enterprise of people helping him do this. Who are these other people that are going to be named? Why aren't we should know who these people are? And these people were with Diddy, help, we're not supposed to say drugging, but anyway, doing that to people at parties and stuff. We need to know who they are. They need to have they need to face public scrutiny. So it's like a lot of these people we will never know, just like y'all, remember when they released those Epstein documents about 3 weeks ago and pages was redacted. We didn't get no new information. Chris says Jay-Z has been rumored to strong arm and bully. Yeah, remember? Absolutely. I mean, that's what, yeah. And you know what? He's not going to have to deal with these allegations because that case is gone. But it sounds like he might have to deal with something else, or at least his attorneys. Because remember, like, it's the attorneys who are representing and doing all of this stuff. So their licenses is the ones that's going to be, on the line. D-Dot says celebrity scandalous. I agree. And then D-Dot says, yep, Chris, he's in agreement with you as well. Like, this is maddening. I've never seen a case like this. It's just so wild. Like all of this back and forth and the attorneys lying, and the Jane Doe came forward and said that she did not say that she's not on audio, but we heard the audio, and then Tony Busby has another audio with her denying that she said. It's just a mess, y'all. I don't know. I feel like, I don't think that Jay-Z necessarily did what they accused him of, but now at this point, I just don't see. I think public opinion is going to feel like he's guilty of something because you went too far. I feel like at this point he went too far. But hold on, you guys. There was another video I wanted to pull up. Let me put this back on while I look for it really quick. This case is just turning into a mess, but we know that the cases for Diddy, we know that all of the cases that Busby did, a lot of the ones that he filed, those are probably going to just go to the wayside. Because the fact that he could not practice in that jurisdiction in New York, they would have to get new counsel. And I'm understanding that the time has elapsed. If they didn't get new counsel to file within that window that they gave them, it's too late now. It's too late. I mean, there's nothing they can do. The law is very clear that your case has to be filed within this time. So he kind of screwed it up for some of his clients. But now the other thing is that still does not affect Diddy's, that doesn't affect Diddy's criminal case. So that's a good thing. Okay, so let's look at TMZ, where they talk about, was that video altered? That's something I wanted to really look at, because Diddy's team really does not want that video shown. And the reason is because what they're saying is that during that video, Cassie was trying to flee a freak off. And they're trying to say that Diddy had beat her up and made her stay because she was trying to leave the freak off. So that's why they really want that tape shown. Not just because he was assaulting her. Because then if it's just an assault issue, then that would be a DV situation and it would not hold the same merit, right? But what they're trying to say is that she was trying to flee a freak off, and he was holding her hostage. And that's why this video is so critical. So hold on. I got to stop it and restart it. Hold on, y'all. So that's why that video, a lot of people think that they only want to show it because it just shows that Diddy, how evil he was. But that's not it, because people have domestic violence all the time. Diddy was saying that she was stealing from him. They could have said they had a fight, and we just saw what happened in the hallway. You guys, I'm not condoning. I'm just saying from a legal perspective why it's not just about him beating her up. It's more about, was he keeping her and she was trying to escape a freak off? Was a freak off happening at that time? And I believe,
huge story on the website. Unbelievable story. Remember the Cassie video? This is Diddy beating Cassie in the hallway of the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles back in 2016. Everybody assumed this video was going to be a really important part of the federal case, even though he's not being charged for this. The prosecution wanted to play this video to the jury in the federal case. I do not think that's going to happen because CNN, according to the defense, altered this video before it aired it and has now destroyed the original.
Like I said, unbelievable. If true that original copy of that video has been destroyed, I can't even get into why it would have been destroyed. But the bottom line for the case, as you say, is.
So here's a point, and you guys, I can't show TMZ because they will strike your channel. So that's why I just have them the audio. But the thing about it is, if CNN did get that tape, they can modify it because they are not part of the investigation. They are just presenting information. None of what they're doing is legal or illegal, right? They don't owe, I mean, you would think it's CNN, so they would know better, but they are a media outlet. So they're just presenting information. They don't care if the tape is chopped up, botched, or whatever. The only people that care are the attorneys because they want to use it as evidence. So that's why, like, people saying, well, why would CNN do it? It doesn't matter. If I came across a video and I cut it up and spliced it just to present it to my YouTube audience, that's my right. However, once it goes to court, the judge and, the prosecuting and the defense attorney, they will want the original tape. I'm not responsible for that. So CNN was not responsible to make sure that this video was intact. They did what they needed to do, was present a story.
If that's true, it's going to be a huge hurdle in the prosecution getting this admitted.
It's not going to get admitted, but let's get into what happened. Now, there is a joint letter that was filed today in federal court by both the prosecution and the defense regarding evidence. Now, this portion of the letter involving the Cassie video, it was the narrative is from the defense.
Right.
So let's get into what.
Yeah, D-Dot, absolutely. If you chopped and screwed the evidence, it's no longer evidence, because that means, you guys, here's the thing. When we do YouTube videos, we have like videos and we might take them from different places and splice it together. We are creating a narrative. We are creating a story. So if there's something that is anti or doesn't go along with the narrative that we're trying to show, we're going to cut it out. So that's the same thing with the evidence. If it's not in support of the case or the picture that you're trying to paint, you can say it was spliced out. Because if it's not the full video, listen, y'all, don't shoot the messenger. If this is not the full video, how do we know Cassie didn't hit him first? How do we know what happened around that corner? See what I'm saying? So that's why if they can't refer back to an original, it's going to be a problem. But the judge is always the one who gets to decide whether or not they can use the altered footage, which generally they would say no.
What the defense is saying.
So here's what they say about the tape. They say CNN purchased the only known copy of the hotel surveillance footage, uploaded that footage into a free editing software, altered the video, and then destroyed the original footage, even though it knew about and repeatedly reported about the federal investigation.
Okay, that is breathtaking for a couple of reasons. Number one, I mean, obviously they paid for it and then destroyed it. But between paying for it.
To be honest, y'all, I don't believe they destroyed it. I don't believe they don't have a care of duty to keep it because they're not part of the lawsuit. So, it would be different if CNN was one of the defendants, one of the named entities on the lawsuit, but they're not. So they just have this tape. But honestly, I don't believe that the copy was destroyed. I believe that somebody, if there isn't an original, I believe somebody was paid off. And number two, if they got a copy of that tape, believe me, there's another copy. How would they get a tape from that many years ago unless somebody had already had the tape, unless they had the original on the server? Y'all know, like those hotel surveillance, like it doesn't make sense.
In destroying it, according to the defense at least, it was altered. They did not air the full version. They said they sped it up. They took things out of sequence.
Right.
And that's, if true, it is shocking.
the speeding up, the editing of it is not shocking.
The out of
as long
sequence,
as
the out of sequence.
and that it can be shocking depending on what they are alleging they're trying to tell there. But again, I cannot fathom a reason that they would destroy the original. I get that you upload it and you're going to edit, and I agree with you that it seems to me the better thing to do would just air the
raw.
entire thing.
Air the raw. Yeah.
But even if you do edit it, why destroy the original?
So there's more here, according to this letter.
Referring to the edit.
I don't believe the original was destroyed. You guys, and last night CNN came out and said it wasn't.
Editing.
And this is where the
defense says the video also includes speeding up the video to make it falsely appear that the actions in the video are taking place faster than they are. As a result, the CNN videos do not fairly and accurately depict the events in question. So I gotta say, on that part,
we saw it.
I understand if you take it out of sequence, that can definitely change some of the narrative. And we don't know all the details as far as what was happening in that hotel room before Cassie walked out.
I think
right?
Now, y'all. Ooh, this is so good. You guys, so if you guys have been watching or following this, Harry Levin does a podcast. I forget what it's called, Mr. The Good Old Men or whatever. He does a podcast with Mark Garagos. Mark Garagos' daughter is one of Diddy's attorneys. So if you guys are peeping game, now TMZ has taken a bit of a different turn on all of this and are now, in my opinion, slightly supportive of Diddy. I mean, they are telling the truth in terms of if it's modified, we don't know what it is. But the fact that Mark Garagos talks to Harry Levin, whose daughter is on the case, what do y'all think? They all in bed together. He want his daughter to win this case.
Intimation, Charles, is this. I think that there was a freak-off allegedly going on in their hotel room.
She is trying to leave.
Well, that's what you think from the video. It may be that the dispute they were having that caused Diddy to get violent the way he did not necessarily involve the freak-off, and that there might be more that would explain other.
See, do y'all see how he's changing the narrative? I mean, he's absolutely right because we don't know. But the fact that TMZ has a huge impact. People watch TMZ for information. Some of the jurors that are going to be there, their opinions are going to be colored by this kind of information, right?
Because as it pertains to the federal indictment, that's what really matters.
That's
as
exactly
horrible and horrific as this beating is, it's not what he's on trial for. That is a statement.
Y'all see what he's saying? It's not what he's on trial for. They are slowly trying to unravel. And again, Mark Garagos and Harry Levin, who is one, I forget the Garagoses, I forget his daughter's name. They are all attorneys and they're all friends. And if Harry Levin is close to Mark Garagos, they have this show together. They are going to try to plant seeds of doubt in the minds of viewers so that his daughter will win this case. They ain't gonna win anyway. But I'm just saying, you see how they're still trying to paint the picture of, well, we really don't know what happened because there were rumors put out there that Cassie was trying to steal money from him. I don't believe that. I don't believe that, but still, I'm just saying.
Matter, and so that's the violence of the beating,
and the statute of limitations is run.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the video and the allegations about the deletion. I really want to know, and we're going to have to hear from CNN, and they will be called to testify.
By the way, we've reached out to them. We haven't heard yet.
So eventually they'll be called to testify, and in that, they're going to have to talk about what was on that video originally. It could be that the original had, remember, this is hallway surveillance, a static camera in the hallway. So it could very well be that there was 10 minutes or 15 minutes of just static hallway footage beforehand. There's no reason why they deleted the original. That is inexcusable.
What my information is that the Intercontinental Hotel, it was in Century City. They closed that down and it's a new hotel now. So there's nothing that anybody can go
You're
to.
Not going back to any server.
No,
it's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone.
I guess the point I'm making is that, so they have, let's call it 5 minutes of video CNN that they aired, and there's an allegation that they've taken it out of order and they've sped up what we saw on television when CNN played it. I just wonder if CNN still has the original of what they played before they edited it. They clearly have destroyed the original. I just wonder what they still have. If, to your point, Harvey, they have taken that and they have forever altered it so that it can't be recreated and puzzled together, that is a death knell to the tape and to the potentially the prosecution.
We should explain. I want to get too legal, Jason, but every lawyer learns this in first-year law school. It's called the best evidence rule, that you are looking for the best evidence, which is the unedited version. If there's an edited version, it's inconceivable to me that a judge would allow that in before a jury, because it doesn't necessarily represent the actual events, even though you could argue, well, it basically does not good enough under the best evidence rule. You have to have the full, unfiltered, unedited version of it.
And so if the judge knows that there is, and by that point, by the time the trial starts, CNN certainly will have to answer to the judge, if to no one else, if not to their audience, why they would have destroyed this. But if the judge knows that there actually is more video that we're not going to see, you're right. I don't know how the judge would allow this.
It's just really
that video doesn't
law.
So my problem with what they're saying is that the CNN did not have to have a care of duty for that tape. CNN got the tape from somebody and they played it. Like, they aren't part of the lawsuit. So, excuse me. So I don't see where there's any liability or anything. I do believe that somebody helped them get rid of the tape. I mean, it's kind of odd that who would have a copy of a tape and just destroy it? You generally wouldn't do that. And whoever gave them the tape, if CNN, and that's another thing. That's why I feel like they're full of ish, because whoever initially gave CNN the tape, you think they gave them the only copy that they had of the tape? If I could sell it to CNN for $50,000, you don't think I might say, well, hell, like, they're gonna give me 50? It just, to me, that doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. You know, the fact that you're able to give it to CNN, to me, would mean that you would want to be able to give it to somebody else in the future if necessary. So I'm not buying that. Let me see what you guys are saying. Queen Sugar says, absolutely not. Right. You're not going to give away the only copy of $1 million tape. This tape was so huge. This tape was so huge that it is no way that that you would be giving them everything you got. Now, I just see something else that says Diddy's daughter's shocking testimony in court. I don't think they testified today because I didn't see anybody talking about that. But there was another court TV show that they were talking about it. I'm trying to see. For some reason, I can't pull it up, but I'm trying to. I don't know if they took it down. A lot of these channels are being struck because they only want a particular information out there. So let me see if I could play this one for now. Yeah, for some reason, a lot of these videos are not allowing us to stream. Okay, let me see. Let me share this one. Hold on, you guys. This is just crazy though. They are shutting people down for real. Before you know, it's like before, you know, it was kind of like we were hearing about.
And there are going to be a number of issues that we expect.
We were hearing about YouTubers like being like they were reaching out and attorneys threatening them. But now even some of the bigger, like the sidebar, like law and crime, their streams are being taken down. It's crazy. That
we're going to hear. And I'm going to lay it out for you about what we can possibly expect. Because remember, we are quickly approaching Combs' May 5th trial date, believe it or not. Unbelievable. I didn't think that was going to happen. And remember, this is a trial where he will face charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, transportation to engage in prostitution. That's an important charge we'll talk about in a minute. But in anticipation of that hearing Friday, here are some things that you should know.
Okay, you guys, so I will show some parts of it, but I can't show it all because you know how it is with this whole copyright stuff. So he's talking about things that we should expect in what happened today. So we'll just kind of go through and see if it aligns with what we went through with Inner City Press.
may be what we can expect. We don't know for sure, but this is possible what is going to be addressed on Friday. Now, first up, we believe that Sean Combs is going to be officially arraigned on the second superseding indictment at this conference. Now, most likely he will be advised of his rights, the charges, most likely will enter a plea. And what is the most significant difference in this new indictment that was filed against him last week on March 6th is really one paragraph. I'm actually going to read you right now part of the government's letter to the court that was filed in conjunction with this superseding indictment, and it reads as follows. The S2 indictment contains no new charged offenses, but includes additional allegations related to the racketeering conspiracy charged in count 1. Specifically, the S2 indictment contains additional allegations as to the means and methods of the racketeering enterprise related to forced labor. So, now let me go right to the second superseding indictment that was filed, and I'm going to read it for you now, what appears to be really the only change from the previous indictment. So this one new addition, again, this is under the means and methods section of the criminal enterprise that Combs allegedly led and ran as part of this racketeering conspiracy charge, that he had this criminal enterprise where prosecutors allege he and this enterprise engaged in forced labor, sex trafficking, arson, kidnapping. And we remember what the main central allegation here is about the racketeering conspiracy, right? That Combs allegedly engaged in a pattern of abusing women for years, that he verbally, emotionally, physically, and sexually abused them. That included transporting women and commercial sex workers and coercing and forcing women to participate in sex acts for his own desire, and that he would use drugs or threats or power or violence to get them to do what he wanted, and that he used his power and his resources in his business empire and employees and associates to carry out all this criminal activity, including covering it all.
And again, if he used his business associates and friends and all of these other people to assist him, where are the other people being indicted? If it's a RICO, if it's an enterprise, if it's an organization, why is he the only one? I mean, there has all the things that they're accusing him of, there have to be multiple people.
All up, and his practices are violations of law. So this is what the new paragraph in the second superseding indictment reads, quote, Combs, along with members and associates of the enterprise, also maintained control over certain employees of the Combs business, whom he forced to work long hours with little sleep through use of, among other things, physical force, psychological harm, financial harm, and reputational harm, and or threats of the same. In doing so, Combs, assisted by members and associates of the enterprise, caused these employees to believe they would be harmed, including by losing their jobs if they did not comply with his demands. With respect to one employee, Combs used physical force, psychological harm, financial harm, and reputational harm, and or threats of the same to cause the employee to engage in sex acts with Combs. Now, we don't know who these employees are or who that specific employee may be.
I'm assuming that's Cassie.
I did a prior sidebar on this where I kind of, gave a little bit of a guess who it might be, but we don't know for sure. But here's what's interesting. You are seeing how much prosecutors may now be relying on forced labor to prove racketeering. Remember, prosecutors need to show underlying crimes to get to the overall racketeering conspiracy charge, right? They're underlying crimes that this criminal enterprise was engaged in. And forced labor may be a more...
Right. Where are these people? Like, are they going to just get off? Especially if the crimes that they did were so horrific. Drugging people, forced into trafficking. Come on now.
More straightforward way to get there. By the way, thank you for continuing to follow us here on Sidebar as we cover the Sean Combs case. We really, really appreciate it. And we plan to continue to do this for you. And with that in mind, I want to send a quick shout out and thank you also to our great partner. Evidence the government seeks to introduce to prove that the specific underlying acts or events that make up that charge. The first enterprise letter appears to have been filed under seal, meaning the public can't see it. Unclear at this time if the supplemental letter was also filed under seal, but you have to imagine it was because this is all done to ensure detail.
See, it was filed under seal, so we don't know the names. They kept promising. I don't know who started telling us we were going to get the names. Filed under seal, we don't get to see. The Epstein list, names redacted, we don't get to see. They're full of ish.
details about the alleged crimes or the potential alleged victims and witnesses, that their identities aren't revealed before trial. That could obviously create a security issue that could negatively affect the case in some way. And the prosecution also indicated in their letter to the court that they've already provided certain discovery to the defense that is associated with this second superseding indictment. So we'll see if the defense makes any sort of objections to all this on Friday or has issues with, properly preparing for trial in light of this new development. I will say this, though. Combs' attorney, Mark Agnifilo, he's always been adamant that his client is innocent, denied these new allegations in the superseding indictment. And in a statement after the superseding indictment was filed, reads, he looks forward to his day in court when it will become clear that he has never forced anyone to engage in sexual acts against their will. Many former employees stand by his side, prepared to attest to the dedication, hard work, and inspiration they experience while helping build groundbreaking, award-winning businesses. Kind of gives you a sense of, maybe who the defense is going to call as witnesses. But again, this new superseding indictment, no new defendants, no new charges. There's nothing to do with minors, as has been alleged in a number of the civil lawsuits that Combs faces. And this is possibly the...
Yeah, that's another thing. People keep saying that they're minors. I haven't seen the mention of minors. I think people have misinterpreted that, but and maybe said it, but I don't know. I need to read the initial complaint again because I don't know that he is facing any charges of minors.
Last time that this indictment will be amended or changed before we go to trial. Maybe. We'll see. So that is probably going to be one part of the hearing on Friday. Another part that we may hear about on Friday is an answer or discussion on a recurring issue in this case that at this point doesn't seem to have been resolved by the judge. Combs claimed that one of his charges should be thrown out on the grounds of racism. That, and by the way, this is quoted language from one of his filings, quote, no white person has ever been the target of a remotely similar prosecution. And really the focus by the defense is on...
They're saying that that is not going to get thrown out. And also because most of his alleged victims were African American, that whole argument falls flat. So yeah, they're saying no, it's not going to work.
Count 3 in the indictment, transportation to engage in prostitution, namely that since 2009, Combs transported victims and commercial sex workers in interstate and foreign commerce with the intent that they engage in prostitution. And Combs argued that that statute has racist origins and was used to target black men and supposedly protect white women from them. And he argued that there is a discriminatory effect and a discriminatory purpose here on the part of the prosecutors in bringing this charge. He argues that escorts are common and routine in America, and specifically the escort service at issue in this case, although it's not named, is a popular, well-known one, and that nobody from that company or any of the clients who have used that service.
But I think escorts and prostitution, we can't say it, aren't those two different things? Because I know in Nevada, I believe sex work is legal, but if you are transporting people for the act itself, is that legal?
Have been criminally charged. So why is he being criminally charged? He cites other high-profile white men who got caught up in similar sexual scandals, like former New York Governor Eliot Spitzer, and they weren't ultimately criminally charged. Why am I being charged? And to further prove racial discrimination, the Southern District of New York, he claims, has gone out of their way to humiliate him, to prejudice a future jury pool.
And he up there talking about they got Negro, you ain't white. That's why. I'm not saying it's right, but we can't do the ish that they do. So you up here, well, they did it. So what? You can't do it, and it's got caught doing it. That's why.
Including by federal agents raiding his homes in the way that they did, or arresting him in New York, even though he said he was going to voluntarily surrender himself. Or the fact that the former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, Damian Williams, held a press conference when Combs was arrested and indicted. So he's asked the court to throw out count 3, or in the old...
Shout out to Show Enough Butter. Welcome to the chat. DDOT says one is legal and one is not. Exactly. One is legal. An escort doesn't mean that you're having services allegedly. Because I know in New York, they have a lot of escorts that allegedly just go out with men for the evening as an escort, whatever. But sexual favors is a whole nother thing. Show Enough Butter says, what's wrong with paying people for their services? I don't think it's a problem. But if it's against the law, it's against the law. In Nevada, I believe it's legal. But, you know, I mean, hey, consenting adults to me is all good, but that's not the law. So that's why he has a problem. And then if you're transporting them across the state line. So, yeah, that's the issue.
Alternative, order discovery regarding the government's charging decision, why they did what they did. Now, the government responded, and again, this is maybe what we're going to hear on Friday, because the government responded and said race never played a factor here. They cited that what makes this argument from Sean Combs really illogical is that Combs claims only one of the 3 charges brought against him was brought on account of race. And they argue that the reason they brought this charge is because it's connected to the overall case and the other charges that Combs is facing. That Combs, quote, engaged in horrific and repeated acts of violence and sexual coercion, harming multiple victims over the course of multiple years. And they argue that race didn't play a factor into the charges that Combs faced, but rather because of his own violent, abusive, and criminal conduct. So in other words, the government here explains that count 3, the count at issue, the transporting people for purposes of prostitution, is exactly what makes up the central theme and core of this case. That count 3, quote, served the defendant's abusive victims. That count alleges that the defendant transported the same victims identified in earlier paragraphs as victims of abuse. That count also alleges that the defendant transported commercial sex workers, which corresponds to the allegations in earlier paragraphs that the defendant coerced female victims to engage in sexual activity with male commercial sex workers. All 3
that trafficking and transporting is one of the big things that got R. Kelly in trouble as well. Those were some of the charges that he faced and were some of the ones that he couldn't hurdle.
Counts of the indictment, thus, on their face, charge a common course of conduct arising out of the defendant's abuse and sexual exploitation of multiple victims. And they further argue that Combs has failed to prove selective prosecution because the decision to prosecute not only had no discriminatory effect, but it also wasn't motivated by discriminatory purpose. They argued first that the origins of this law that Combs cites, they're not relevant to the actual legal analysis here. And then they argue that all those other high-profile white men that he cites, like Elliot Spitzer or even Jerry Falwell Jr., who allegedly had another man have sex with his wife as he watched. Again, men who got caught up in similar situations with similar allegations like Combs, but prosecutors say they weren't facing the same allegations that he's facing, the same kind of charges. Prosecutors argue that none of those people are in the same situation or facing the same kind of allegations as Combs. They don't have the aggravating factors like in the Combs case, that Combs is accused.
Yeah, I mean, I seen them say that in the complaint, like multiple times he's being accused of trafficking, transporting, buying tickets, getting people. And then that's what Cassie is going to definitely, she's going to say that's what he did.
Accused of sex trafficking multiple victims through force, fraud, and or coercion. That none of those other people or other clients of the escort service at issue transported escorts as a...
And remember, y'all, Cassie was saying that she helped him do it. I mean, I'm sure she cooperated with the feds, so now she won't have any charges, but she's going to say this is what we did and he forced me to do it.
Pattern of criminal racketeering activity, that he wasn't just transporting escorts, but look at the larger case here. He's accused of transporting victims of sex trafficking, that's what's key. In other words, his alleged criminal conduct is considerably more serious. And the government also argued that there are cases in the Southern District of New York where Combs is being prosecuted, where you have people of all different races being charged in a similar fashion to Sean Combs with Mann Act and sex trafficking violations. You have wealthy fashion executive Peter Nygaard, a white defendant who was charged in this district with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and Mann Act violations. Or what about white Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice, charged with sex trafficking and Mann Act violations? She was found guilty. And
so, see, when he first made this argument that that is predominantly used against blacks, I went and looked it up and I saw that there were other white people that actually had the same charges. So I don't think it's going to stand. This one is going to fall flat for him.
And from there, they argued that he has failed to present any evidence that the government was motivated by racism in bringing this charge. And that if Combs is citing when former U.S. Attorney Damian Williams held a press conference when Combs was arrested and indicted back in September, that this is...
Okay, so D-Dot gave some information because I wasn't aware of that. So D-Dot says, hold on, you guys. It says, If it's only one person, it's a minimum of 15 to 20 years per each. He gonna retire. Die in prison. If you know what I'm saying, he's not gonna get out. Eric E says, I've been in the chat listening. I'm driving. Oh, good. Thank you. And I hope the drive is safe. D-Dot says, Eric E, what up, bro? What up? Yeah, we just going over this Diddy because he just had his hearing. They don't want us to know nothing, Eric. They want to put everything on private. It's crazy.
Proof prosecutors were trying to humiliate him or singling him out, again, trying to show racism. They argue this is standard and that Williams held press conferences in other cases. Like, look at the recent sex trafficking case of the White Alexander brothers, Alon, Tal, and Oren. We have been focusing upon them a lot here on Sidebar. Held a press conference there. And there are other arguments they address, but you get the general gist of the back and forth.
Yeah, y'all remember those real estate brothers, because the Lounge did an expose on them. So he can't even act like it's only black guys that this is happening, black men. He's crazy.
Fourth, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, I think that this is a losing argument for Sean Combs' case. I think it's a very high burden to show that this was selective prosecution, and it doesn't seem to me, on the face of it, they've presented enough evidence to either justify this charge being dismissed or to justify discovery being ordered at this point. So I don't imagine that will be much luck for them, but we'll see. Now, again, I think it's possible that will come up on Friday. But there's also something else to keep an eye out for as we talk about this hearing on Friday. A motion to suppress evidence, which we don't believe has been addressed as of the time of this recording. So Combs last month filed a motion to make sure a lot of evidence isn't admitted into this trial. And he argues that multiple search warrants used to find evidence against him and indict him were way too broad, and that some of the information investigators found actually goes against their case. And we're talking requesting the court to suppress evidence from the following search warrants and anything.
So the tweets that we read earlier from Inner City Press, I didn't hear them say much about suppressing that evidence. I'll need to go back and look, because remember he was saying that talking about the search warrants when they went and they got information and evidence that they shouldn't and they wanted suppressed. So I didn't hear them really address that.
That came from that. And this is a big deal. The January 4th, 2024 warrant to search Mr. Combs' iCloud accounts. The March 22nd, 2024 warrant to search his Los Angeles residence and to seize evidence obtained therein. The March 22nd, 2024 warrant to search his Miami residence and to seize evidence obtained therein. The March 25th, 2024 warrant to search his person and to seize and search 2 of his cell phones, referred to as Combs number 1 and Combs number 2, and to extract information from those phones. The September 16th, 2024 warrant to search his person and to seize and search an additional 2 of his cellular phones, referred to by the government as Combs number 3 and Combs number 4, and to extract information from those phones. And the September 16th, 2024 warrant to search Combs' room at the Park Hyatt Hotel and to seize evidence obtained therein, or in the alternative, granting a Franks hearing. That's, by the way,
D-Dot, what does it say? Tell me so I could go look. Okay. Thank you.
A specific hearing where a defendant can challenge the validity of search warrants. So the main argument being that when the government sought search warrants, it presented a distorted picture of the facts, that it didn't include all the information, that it was misleading, that it didn't include exculpatory evidence for the court to consider, and the court would probably like to consider that, and evidence that Combs argues was in the government's possession. They had a duty to turn it over, or at least show it to the court. And what would this evidence be? Well, they argue that would be evidence that sexual activity was really consensual, or that Combs, for instance, discouraged an alleged victim in this case from doing drugs, which goes against the narrative that he used drugs to keep victims compliant. And again, they say that this was deliberately hidden by the prosecutors in the warrant applications, and particularly when it came to victim 1 in the indictment, who we believe to be Cassandra Ventura. This is Combs' ex-girlfriend. The idea is that the government had already gotten evidence from victim 1 that may help his case. And there was also no mention in the application of that evidence, but also her potential financial.
I don't understand his point here. They're going to get as much evidence and information as they can to prove their case because they have such a huge success rate. So I don't get this.
Motive to exaggerate details and falsify her account. That all of this is something a magistrate judge would have liked to know before issuing a warrant. That's Combs' argument. And Combs says other information in the warrant is tainted from other sources. Quote, some of the most salacious allegations recounted in the warrant applications came from producer one, who the government now says it will not even call to testify at trial. And by the way, we believe this to be, we don't know for sure, we believe this to be Rodney Lil Rod Jones, who filed a former lawsuit against Sean Combs. He was his former producer. The investigator indicated he had interviewed producer one, and producer one had relayed stories about his time working for Combs. Now, the exact details of what producer one told the investigators is redacted, but the defense goes on to say, these accusations were never credible. They were uncorroborated, redacted, and the government had boatloads of contrary evidence, including redacted. The government eventually dropped these allegations.
And an FYI, you guys, for those of you who don't know, Lil Rod sued Diddy previously and it in a failed attempt. So I don't know if it's going to stand this time. I mean, there is an indictment, but just the FYI, Lil Rod had tried to sue him before.
And later warrants, but their lack of credibility was manifest from the outset. So according to the filing goes on, the government has advised us it will not call producer one as a witness at Combs' trial. In other words, what the information that was given to support the warrants.
Also, D-Dot, Lil Rod is the one who named Diddy's sons. So he's the one who introduced Diddy's sons. Because remember, we were all thinking that they were going to be introduced in this enterprise letter too. So he has some dirt on them as well.
Is tainted. And they argue also that these warrants were so overbroad. Quote, the warrants here authorized unbounded search of Mr. Combs' business and personal affairs. The warrants were allowed the very sort of general exploratory rummaging in a person's belongings that the Fourth Amendment forbids. Nor can the government evade the Fourth Amendment's limits simply by stating that Mr. Combs was himself a sort of criminal racketeering enterprise, and therefore all evidence of his business and personal life was relevant evidence of a crime. If such a rhetorical trick were allowed, the Fourth Amendment would lose all meaning. Now, if Combs were to win this would be devastating for the prosecution. None of this evidence potentially coming in. Now, not so fast, because the government responded in a filing of its own. So they write in their filing, quote, the defendant fails to demonstrate that there were intentional misstatements or omissions in the affidavits and that those misstatements or omissions were material. To the contrary, the defendant relies on rank, unsupported assumptions about the government's access to and knowledge of facts at particular points in time during its long investigation of the defendant's crimes. Moreover, and fatal to his motion, the defendant makes no attempt to show that the affiant acted with the subjective intent to mislead the issuing magistrate judge or with reckless disregard for the truth. His motion, therefore, should be denied without a hearing. For example, in response to the problems facing producer one's account, his credibility, the government explains, okay, but his statements were corroborated by another witness, a witness who was relied upon in the affidavits. There are also text messages that prove and help to show probable cause here. In response to victim,
I think they're talking about Cassie. Actually, I'm going to show you. So I think when they're talking about Lil Rod, they're saying his statements were corroborated by Cassie's lawsuit. So let me take the banner off so you guys can see, because I think that's exactly what they're saying.
Victim one, again, who we believe to be Cassandra Ventura, the government makes the argument that even if Combs engaged in consensual sex, it doesn't negate if there is a finding of probable cause that he sex trafficked victim one. And even if there were issues with respect to victim one, the warrants back in March to search his properties and his person, they set forth sufficient probable cause that he engaged in sex trafficking of other victims, that they don't rely just on victim one alone as the sole victim. And I thought this was interesting. The government argues that the text messages that Combs cites that are, quote, material omissions, they were actually cherry-picked by the defendant, their argument is, and they're actually part of larger incriminating conversations against him. The problem is all of these messages are redacted in the filing, so we really don't know the full context, but interesting they make that argument. And they further argue that purported omissions in the warrants, they were immaterial to the case. And in terms of the overbroad argument, and those warrants are too overbroad, they're too expansive, they have a response to that as well. Quote, ignoring the language in the warrants themselves, the defendant argues that the government essentially sought authority to search and seize anything in the defendant's iCloud accounts, residences, cell phones, and hotel room. The defendant is wrong. Contrary to the defendant's unsupported accusations, the warrants each specified a number of detailed categories of highly relevant information to be seized that were all amply supported by probable cause. The warrants were therefore particularized and not overbroad, and the defendant's overbreadth challenge to the warrants fails. And this is all that Fourth Amendment analysis, protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. And for warrants, you need to lay out the specific crime that police have found probable cause for, the place to be searched, the items to be seized. But here's the thing, warrants by law can be broad. The only thing is, and this is key, as laid out by the prosecution, a warrant is overbroad if its description of the objects to be seized is broader than can be justified by the probable cause upon which the warrant is based. And here, the government argues that even though Combs claims the warrants gave the government to search everything, they were actually pretty particularized, according to the government. Quote, the items to be seized set out in each warrant were also tied directly to the probable cause upon which the warrant is based. The defendant complains that the warrant sought communications, photos, documents, calendars, location data, travel records, financial records, and call records. But the defendant...
I mean, when people get a warrant, they're going to get a warrant for all the information they can find. Okay,
conveniently ignores the limiting principle set forth clearly in each warrant, which only authorized seizure of the aforementioned items that were related to the subject offenses. That would include, for example, communications revealing the defendant's obstructive conduct, photos depicting the defendant's participation in criminal sex acts, and travel records reflecting the defendant's interstate transportation of commercial sex workers. Without question, these materials constitute evidence, fruits, and instrumentalities of the crimes designated on the face of the warrants. By contrast, the defense...
I guess Diddy think that he gonna get to pick in what kind of evidence that the feds are gonna get about him. Oh, well, y'all can have this, you can't have that. Like, Diddy, stop.
Defendant's communications, photos, documents, calendars, location data, travel records, financial records, and call records that were not related to criminal activity were fully protected from seizure. So, should be an interesting time on the criminal front. All right, before we wrap things up, literally right before we were about to finish this recording, we just got word that the parties filed a letter with the court. So a few more things we got to call out in this case. So first of all, the government is asking the court to begin jury selection prior to the trial date of May 5th, 2025. Again, this is pursuant to this letter that was filed. And they want...
Yeah, he's going to cherry pick as if they're going to let him do that. And of course, because if he does it, he's only going to choose the things that's going to be in his favor. Come on, Diddy, they're not doing that.
Openings on May 5th. So they want this trial to get started immediately on May 5th. Otherwise, their fear is that this trial will go past July 4th, and that could create an issue in getting a jury selected. Obviously, it's a big holiday. And the government also argues that there is an issue.
So they want the jury selection to go to start before the May 5th date. Okay, I got that.
With witnesses too, that it's important to do jury selection, voir dire, before May 5th, because apparently many of these witnesses have to travel from out of state. So there's some scheduling concerns. So they're asking jury selection to begin next month, April 21st, 2025. And it also becomes a question, by the way, will they get a jury by then? We shall see, or at least how much can they ferret out by that point? But the defense argues they want jury selection to start on May 5th and May 6th with written jury questionnaires. And then May 12th, they want to begin the actual jury selection process, whittling it down, and then have openings by May 13th. And they say if you start this earlier, this would actually prejudice their case.
So they want to stick to as much to the schedule as possible, because they're saying if not, it's going to prejudice in terms of, I'm assuming, like with the evidence and things that they have to look through. Again, this case is a mess. And
they are also asking for a sequestered jury selection process in which the jurors are questioned individually outside the presence of other jurors, so that they aren't, influenced or affected by others. That's presumably the concern there. And the defense says that this has been done in other high-profile cases, like the Ghislaine Maxwell case. Then there was an issue of the jury questionnaire itself that was brought up in this letter. So the government is asking the court to refrain from using a jury questionnaire, or in the alternative, using a jury questionnaire limited to only logistical issues, meaning whether there are any conflicts that would prevent a juror from being seated in this case, a scheduling conflict, rather than asking them substantive questions about what they know of Sean Combs or this case or things like that. Their argument is that an initial questionnaire about substantive issues, that would delay the case, that would delay the trial. Basically, their argument is you should save that later on for in-person questioning, oral questioning. The defense has a different perspective. The defense wants a written questionnaire because of the pretrial publicity in this case, and they say it's publicity that is mostly in the government's favor. And their argument is this would actually be quicker and more efficient to do it this way. Then there's an issue of discovery, and without going into all the legal rules and the citations and all this and the back and forth, simply put, the government is saying, look, we made discovery productions to the defense, but they haven't done so in kind. But the defense's perspective, again, I'm really summarizing this pretty quickly, is they don't want to produce discovery until we are aware of the government's witnesses and exhibits. Then we know what we have to turn over. And then the defense also makes the claim, and I want to point this out as well, that the infamous video of Sean Combs purportedly beating up Cassandra Ventura in a hotel hallway back in 2016 that was published by CNN last year, they make the claim that was altered, and they will file a motion perhaps trying to limit or exclude its use at trial. And we know that could potentially be a key piece of evidence in this case. So interesting to see how that works up. And there was also a debate about a final pretrial conference and when it should be scheduled. So I could obviously dedicate a full sidebar episode to that letter, but you get the basic gist of it. I would suggest the best thing to do, tune in tomorrow on Law and Crime's YouTube channel, live stream. We are going to do live coverage of the Sean Diddy Combs hearing. We'll take your questions on it. Elizabeth Milner will be in that courtroom as well for us and do live reporting back to us. But that is all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for
Okay, you guys. So that was that. And yeah, Lulu was given the laughing green monster, which lets me know it's time for us to sign off, y'all. Again, don't forget to go follow Lulu. Let me go back over here so I could get let me go to wrong. Lulu's Divine Flow. You guys please go follow her on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. And if you guys haven't already joined the family, please come and join us. We have a lot of fun over here, although we get serious a lot too. And thank you for joining. Please hit the like in or your way out, and I'll see you on the next video. Also, don't forget to go follow King Code TV, Push the Culture, fun people over there. And shout out to D-Dot for all of the updates and giving me information. I appreciate you guys. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye.